We will learn polyatomic ion and their charge today. We will use story to remember their names, and then we will see how they are used in everyday life. Let's dive in. First, we will learn the two polyatomic ion that has positive charge, +1. One of them is ammonium. There is only one N in the ammonium. I took the N out. The polyatomic starts with N.
I have 4 cousins, and their names start with H. I will use the 4H from my 4 cousins' name and N from ammonium. It helped me to remember polyatomic ion ammonium chemical formula. NH4+ is ammonium. I just learned my first polyatomic ion. As I said before, I have 4 cousins. 3 of my cousins among them have extreme cleaning OCD symptoms. They are extremely clean, unfortunately, so I will keep them out of my future graduation party because they will complain of mess. 3 of their names start with H, which I will use as H3 from my cousin's name, and O from OCD, which helps me to remember.
The polyatomic ion hydronium H3O+. Now we will use another story for learning the polyatomic ions. Those have negative charge 1. Rest of the polyatomic ion we will learn today which has negative charge 1. We will learn 9 key polyatomic ion, and if we know the chlorate ion, we can figure out 4 versions of them. Same way, if we know hydrogen sulfate and nitrate, we can figure out hydrogen sulfite and nitrite too. That brings us total 15 polyatomic ion with 1 negative charge we will know. Let's look for the polyatomic ions with negative charge 1. The story begins to ACE for my college prep exams. I needed a break, so I went to a party. ACE is for acetate ion, 4 is for formate ion, college CHL for chlorate ion. We learned 3 polyatomic ion in first line. The second line of the story. The cyan-colored food make my acidity higher and needed club soda. The presence of bicarbonate ion I needed. The cyan-colored cyan is for cyanide ion. Bicarbonate ion is for bicarbonate or hydrogen carbonate ion. We got 2 more polyatomic ion in this line. Third line. Then I watched Hunting Season, The Dead Pool. Finally, I had peppermint candy and Nutella on crackers. The Hunting Season we will use for hydrogen sulfate HSO₄. The Dead Pool we will use for dihydrogen phosphate ion H2PO4. Peppermint candy for permanganate MnO₄. Nutella for nitrate ion NO₃. We learned 4 polyatomic ion from this sentence. The last line I didn't even notice. I slept and was dreaming of water. Hydroxide ions, OH, are directly created from water chemistry. Didn't leave me there too. We just learned hydroxide ion OH. Another tips to remember. If you see IDE at the end of any polyatomic ion, think of it as its own ID itself. It is mostly in the periodic table elements itself. It doesn't need oxygen mostly at the end. Typically it's monoatomic ion. Typically, not always. That means polyatomic ion ending with ID doesn't have oxygen mostly. Polyatomic ion ending with 8 has most oxygen. If we memorize the polyatomic ion ending with ATE, we can figure out the polyatomic ion ending with ITE. Tips to remember the characteristics of polyatomic ion ends with 8. 8 always eat more oxygen. We will think 8 is the Atlantic salmon. Atlantic salmon eat more primarily to fuel rapid growth, energy for long-distance diving. The coolest thing. While they spend most of their time in the upper 10 meters, they engage in U-shaped dives to colder, deeper waters for foraging and navigation. He needs to eat more. On the other hand, Italian sparrow eat less portion of food than the Atlantic salmon. The Italian sparrow eat primarily seeds, grains, like wheat and corn. ITE eat less than 8. If polyatomic ion has more oxygen than polyatomic ion ending with 8, then we add per in those polyatomic ion. If per is added before the polyatomic ion, that means it has more oxygen than the polyatomic ion end with 8. Clue to remember: per is super, it has the most oxygen. Now we will look what happens when hypo is added in the starting of polyatomic ion. Let's see what is ADHD. A person may experience hyperactivity, excessive movement, talking, because of less regulation in the brain. The less regulation we will think of, like less oxygen, than the polyatomic ion ending with IT. Honestly, if you notice, you will see it's like a fun staircase where oxygen going from least to most. The more you keep using the polyatomic ion, it became like a game. You just need to know the secret code. Hypo has one less oxygen than IT add per if I have one more oxygen than 8. Most of them don't have hypo or per, only some, example chlorite, have it. Acetate ion C₂H₃O₂. The acetate ion bonds internally with carbon, C, and hydrogen, H, atoms via covalent bonds, single and double bonds to oxygen, and externally with positive ions, cations, like sodium Na+ or potassium K+, through ionic bonds to form salts, liver converts, alcohol ethanol to acetate. The acetate ion is widely used in daily life as the key component in vinegar, acetic acid, acting as a food preservative and flavoring agent. If we see how the polyatomic ions are used in our daily life, it will be much easier to accept and remember them, and anyway, we have to deal with their reactions too. The more we know them, the easier the reactions will be. The formate ion, HCO₃, is a polyatomic ion made of one carbon, 2 oxygens, and 1 hydrogen, covalently bonded with an overall negative charge. Ants use it as a bactericide to preserve food. The chlorate ion, ClO₃, is a powerful, highly reactive polyatomic ion used in daily life primarily as an oxidizing agent in specialized applications, including herbicides and matches. The chlorate ion, ClO₃, reacts with group 1 elements, alkali metals like sodium and potassium, to form alkali metal chlorates, for example sodium chlorate. These are ionic compounds where the metal acts as a +1 cation, and the chlorate is a 1 anion. Sodium chlorate is a major component in agricultural weed killers, taking advantage of its ability to release oxygen and destroy plant tissue. Potassium chlorate, KClO₃, is used in the manufacture of matches, specifically the tip, and in fireworks. Now we can figure out chlorite ion, ClO₂, which has one less oxygen than IT. We can figure out hypochlorite polyatomic ion ClO, which has least oxygen than IT and AT. We also can figure out perchlorite polyatomic ion with the chemical formula ClO₄, which has the most oxygen like we said before, per is super. Cyanide ions, CN, are crucial in industries like mining, gold or silver extraction, electroplating, and manufacturing plastics, nylon, textiles, and chemicals. The hydrogen carbonate ion, HCO₃, also known as bicarbonate, is a crucial polyatomic ion in biology and chemistry, acting as the body's primary blood buffer to regulate pH. Role in buffer systems. It regulates pH in biological systems, blood, by switching between carbonic acid and carbonate. Works with carbonic acid to keep blood pH stable, which is around 7.4. It carries CO2 from tissues to the lungs for exhalation. Kidneys help regulate blood bicarbonate levels. The hydrogen sulfate ion HSO₄, or bisulfate ion, is a common polyatomic ion used in household cleaners and some specialized skin-soothing treatments. Hydrogen sulfate ion acts as a precursor to sulfate and produces hydronium ions in water. It is technically classified as a weak acid. Sulfuric acid is the strong acid. The permanganate ion, MnO₄, is a powerful deep purple oxidizing agent primarily used as a water purifier and disinfect surfaces. Is frequently paired with potassium to form potassium permanganate. The nitrate ion, NO₃, is a common polyatomic ion, a group of atoms acting as one unit, made of 1 nitrogen and 3 oxygen atoms, carrying a negative charge. Ammonium nitrate, NH4NO₃, is used to feed crops and lawns. Sodium nitrate is used to cure meats, like bacon. Nitroglycerin is a nitrate medication used to treat chest pain, angina, by widening blood vessels. The hydroxide ion, OH, is a simple common polyatomic ion composed of 1 oxygen and 1 hydrogen atom with a 1 charge. It acts as a base in water and is essential in household products like soap, drain cleaners, sodium hydroxide, and antacids, often used to neutralize acids. Important tips. In periodic table, group 1 has +1 charge. Clue to remember for next ones. If someone wants to gift you a bracelet, would you like silver or zinc or cadmium? My choice list silver will be number 1, zinc and cadmium will be number 2. In periodic table, zinc always +2, silver always +1, cadmium always +2. That's all for today. We already learned 118 elements of periodic table through story in previous videos, and now we learned some common polyatomic ions. We will discuss more polyatomic ion and mnemonics to remember their names easily in next video in few weeks. It took me a while to come up with all silly mnemonics. Please give me a thumbs up if it's helped you.